midst of time, when the deep roots of racism still abraded every aspect of Southern life with its harshest segregation, a group of 7 black men would cut down the barriers which separated them from their dreams. They did not receive accolades of fame for their contributions like many of the people who paved the way for equal rights and freedom we enjoy today. Even though many of them were inspirational pillars of equality in their own right, this is their story, the history of men and women who created, made, and ran Columbia Air Center.
Back in the 40s, there were a group of black young men here in D.C. who had a desire to fly. However, because of the racism in this country at that time, they were unable to fly at the established airports. However, they did try to fly at an airport called Beacon Field, which was located on Route 1, and that was sometimes in the 40s. And they even bought an airplane, a Piper, a coupe. And they operated at Beacon Field for a short time, but because of certain problems they had over there as far as getting along with folks, they decided they had to find some place of their own to fly.
They called themselves the Cloud Club. The club stayed at Beacon for several months until racism began to take its toll. Soon after the club had established itself at Beacon, it became quite apparent that they were not wanted there. Almost from the beginning, the owner began harassing members of the club, falsely accusing them of breaking airport regulations.
So they looked around Maryland and Virginia and finally found this place on the Patuxent River, which had been an old potato farm. And that was owned by a lady that lived on the eastern shore by the name of Rebecca Fisher. And she leased this site to these people for $50 a month. They in turn went down and they cut out 2 or 3 runways. And of course back there all runways were grass or sod runways.
With the hangar and runways cleared, the airport was almost ready for business. They commissioned the help of 3 other aviation teachers, John Friedel, John Taylor, and Charles Ash, who would act as field manager. Of the 5 teachers who would be working at the airport, only 2 were black, John Green and Ash.
And that's how it all began. The first name of the airport was Riverside Airport, and then later on it became Columbia Air Center.
Within the first year of opening, Riverside Field had broken many social barriers by becoming the first African-American owned and operated airport in the United States.
I think a lot of the credit can go to John Green, who was one of the black aviation pioneers.
The club realized that because they were black, no white power would dare to teach them, not at Beacon or any other airport. The club's president, Harold Smith, wrote to Green and asked him to teach them for a year, explaining that if he did, they would not be able to pay him. As both an African American and a pioneering pilot, Green understood their struggle and agreed to move from Boston to Washington, D.C. As a way to compensate for his expenses, he took a teaching job at Phelps High School to jumpstart an aviation mechanics program. This came as familiar ground to him. In 1938, he single-handedly established the Boston School of Aeronautics.
John Green was the second black man in the United States to receive a transport pilot's license. And as you know, that's the highest pilot rating of the FAA, that the CAA or the FAA issues. That's what we call the PhD of aviation as far as pilots are concerned. But John Green was the first black man in the United States, according to the old FAA records, to receive an airplane and engine mechanics license. Mr. Green had ideas. He wanted to have horseback riding down there and other things, but the main thrust was aviation, and he established a ground school down there where he taught people the related subjects to aviation, such as meteorology, navigation, theory of flight, and all that sort of thing. But back in those days, there were only about a handful of black instructors in this area. Only it wasn't more than 5 of them. Of course, today you have black instructors all around every airport in this area.
As of late September 1940, he had established his students at Beacon Field, where he offered flying lessons, ground school, and mechanic classes.